you for joining us here on the Wildcats Network. Greater Latrobe football coming up next.
30, he's not going to be caught. 98-yard touchdown run. Firing deep downfield, going up and making the catch. Near the goal line, and he is in for a touchdown. In the counter trade, look, and Wetzel's got room. He's over the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5, touchdown!
Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us here on the Wildcats Network. Tristan Borland here in our studios at LHTC Media in Latrobe. Alongside me on the horn, Richard Hilwig. Richard, thank you for joining me here today. So, Richard, before we get started with today's live stream, I want to give a big thanks to our big sponsor in Eaton Park. So thank you, Eaton Park, for sponsoring this stream. They are a place for smiles. Turn that down a little bit more. They are the place for smiles, and they are a big sponsor here on the Wildcats Network. So thank you again, Eaton Park. And Richard, the big talk today, football, they just dropped the section.
Month ago, per se, and you're kind of in that lull before spring sports. There's only like a couple days in advance. So I feel like this was the right timing just to kind of get it out of the way. So there's no really foreshadowing for spring sports. And I think that's, at the end of the day, everyone enjoys football whenever the schedule comes out. And to be honest, if you're a team that didn't win the championship, you're probably looking forward to getting right back out there and competing for that championship when you look at that schedule.
So to break down the section alignment, we look at section 1. Richard, there's a bit of a shakeup there and a very controversial shakeup at that. Aliquippa joining Fox Chapel, North Hills, Penn Hills, Pine Richland, Plum, and Shaler out in section 1. Richard, I want to know, what is your take on what's going on with Aliquippa and the WPIAL?
It's interesting to say the least, because Aliquippa gets moved up for the competitive advantage when in reality they kind of have an enrollment that's closer towards 3A, 2A. So they were already in 4A. I feel like they're punishing for, not necessarily punishing, but they're moving up because they're winning. That kind of just doesn't make sense to me. And I think the team that's probably going to be, or the teams that probably will be the most not happy to see that is probably going to be teams that are up at the top in 5A always. You would talk about Penn Trafford, talk about Franklin Regional, Peters Township, Pine Richland. Those are the teams that are probably going to be like, yeah, we don't want to see the 4A state champion in our classification. So it just makes 5A that much more competitive, and it just makes 5A that much more enjoyable to watch.
So the big thing to talk about today is moving down into section 2. You have Armstrong moving up from 4A alongside Franklin Regional, Kiski, Penn Trafford is saying the same. Same with Woodland Hills. Same with Gateway. They're saying the same. But Latrobe, Kiski, and Armstrong, Richard, all moving up from 4A.
And you want to know what's interesting that I found out with the section alignment is that it is almost identical to the softball section, and it's almost identical to the basketball section in a sense for boys, minus Woodland Hills for both of those, and minus Armstrong for the basketball side. So it's not like Greater Latrobe is not seeing schools that they aren't familiar with. They're familiar with these schools in different sports, and we also forget that they were in 5A before they dropped down to 4A. So just because it's a 2-year hiatus doesn't mean Greater Latrobe isn't unfamiliar with these teams.
Well, especially teams like Franklin Regional. I mean, even when we took a break moving down to 4A, yep, you still had the Route 22 rivalry that we had at Memorial Stadium. I know you're still a little salty about that, Richard.
Yeah, there's the Route 22 rivalry always gets the attention. And not just last year, but the year before, we had a double overtime win at Franklin Regional for Greater Latrobe. So the Route 22 rivalry never disappoints. And now moving back up to 5A, it just makes the rivalry that much more important, because we're going to touch on it when we get to the schedule, but it kicks off the conference play for Greater Latrobe and Franklin Regional.
And then we kind of move down to the section 3, but Baldwin, Bethel Park, Moon, Peters Township, South Fayette, Upper St. Clair, Richard, those are all the same. They didn't move anywhere at all.
Yeah, and Peters Township is probably still going to be considered the favorite given the fact they went 15-1 and were the 5A champions, defeating Pine Richland. So uh, it's going to be interesting to see who really emerges apart from Peters Township as kind of that second echelon of teams in that section. And, each two teams they do the 18 playoffs in 5A, which just makes, again, going back to it, that just makes 5A that much more competitive and that much more important is that only 8 teams get it. So there's only 2 guaranteed spots. It's going to be interesting to see who kind of emerges from that second wave of teams apart from Peters Township in that section.
So then you look at some of the other teams they're going to be playing right here, Richard. Um, I think the big thing is going to be interesting how Aliquippa kind of shakes up 5A. I think that that's going to be really real, especially when you start talking about postseason. I think Aliquippa is going to be a big deciding factor.
They are, and they're going to be in that area. Well, let's get the one thing out of the way. They have the postseason experience from seems like several years. They're the perennial champions of 4A. They're the perennial champions, period. So you add them to a much more stacked conference with, the quality teams that we just mentioned. It's going to be very good playoff football, I think, this year. And you talk about, a team like Aliquippa that, has a player like Tyke Hayes. He can change a game on a dime. It's as simple as that. Like, if you have those players, you're going to get a chance. And Aliquippa is just an example of that. And there's a reason why they went undefeated last year. They are a really, really good team.
So, Richard, I think that's it for our breakdown of these 5A. When we come back after this quick break, we're going to have the 5A Section 3 breakdown here between myself, Tristan Borland, and Richard Hillwig coming up on the Wildcats Network. Up next.
I think we can agree it's been a crazy year for everyone. And we here at Latrobe Auto Group want you to know that we're in this together and we're here for you. Hi everyone, I'm Wendy Hyrak and I'm the finance manager here at the dealership. During the past year, we've all seen some pretty crazy things. Maybe your credit's been affected by some of those things. You should know that no matter what your credit situation is, great credit, good credit, bad credit, or no credit, Latrobe Auto Group wants to be your dealer and we specialize in credit challenges. Our credit team is just waiting to put you in a new car or truck that will start building your credit today and get you moving in the right direction. No matter what you've heard, our lot is stocked with new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned cars and trucks.
Hi, I'm Chris Beddick, agent for State Farm Insurance, located conveniently on Route 981 here in Latrobe. We proudly offer auto, home, renters, life, and small business insurance since 2001. Need a good neighbor? Chris Beddick is there. Go Wildcats!
Hello, folks, back here again on the Wildcats Network. Tristan Borland alongside the one and only Richard Hillwig. Richard, we just broke down Section 5A, and I think now we're about to break down the Section 3.
Yeah, it's now Greater Latrobe section here. And why don't we start with the 2 teams that joined Greater Latrobe that were in 4A last year, starting with Kiski area. They finished 4th in the Greater Allegheny Conference, 5-5 overall record, and a 3-3 section record. And I think what makes their season, impressive from last year is that in that Greater Allegheny Conference and in 4A in general, they started 1-4, and they made the playoffs after that. So that's a great coaching job, great resilience by that team. Their last game against Greater Latrobe was in 2021. It was a 35-27 loss in 2021. And last year for Kiski area, they made the first round of the playoffs. They lost to number 6 Thomas Jefferson, 57-14. But I think we know what to expect from Kiski area. They're going to be a team that fights like crazy, always, every given night. In any sport, they're just there battling with you to the end.
I mean, I think about that the basketball playoff game between, or not playoff game, but it was a basketball game between I think it was Penn Trafford, Richard, and Kiski.
Oh yeah.
And Kiski, they came to fight. A lot of people looked at Penn Trafford and they're like, "Oh, that's going to be a rollover game," but no, Kiski was scrappy. Even when they came to
Yep.
the Den early in the season, that boys basketball team was really something to fear.
Yeah, and one of their key players from last year's team, Isaiah Gonzalez, he is going to be one of their key graduates that is not going to be there next year for Kiski area, but they do have some key returners. Carson Heinley, looking at my stats here, finished fourth in 4A in passing yards, 1,805 yards, and he was 54 completion percentage. So those are good numbers for a quarterback that's coming back for you next year. You also have a receiver in Andrew Finney, was 18th in 4A in receiving yards, 371. So yes, that doesn't seem like a lot, but you look, I think he's probably going to take over some of the production left behind by Isaiah Gonzalez here, who had 599 yards, close to 600 yards. They're also going to run the ball a lot with Landon Cooches as well. So that's going to be kind of the identity, I would say, for Kiski area is probably just going to be running the ball and kind of taking back some of the production that Isaiah Gonzalez left behind.
And I would also agree that the Kiski Cavaliers, they're going to have a pretty awesome offensive line to be running behind.
Yeah, they are. And I feel like a lot of these teams in 5A are going to have good offensive lines, a lot of physicality in 5A. There's a lot of deep play, and a lot of that goes with running the football well. And we know from watching Greater Latrobe over the past 2 years that they've kind of adopted a running identity. So a lot of these teams in 5A, they're going to, and again, going along the lines of Isaiah Gonzalez, they're also going to lose Terry Martin, who had 520 yards. So that was kind of their duo last year, along with Carson Heinley. But I think it's now time for Andrew Finney to step up and now take back some of the production left behind by Gonzalez and Martin.
Well, after Kiski, we move on and we look at the Armstrong Riverhawks. An interesting team, Richard. I think there's a, don't get me wrong, the Riverhawks are good, especially in a lot of these different sports, and especially the girls basketball team who competed in the WPIAL championship over at Peterson Event Center. But this Armstrong Riverhawks team is not a team that Greater Latrobe is very that they know very well.
Yeah, there's just a lot of unknowns when it comes to the Armstrong Riverhawk football team, and from the experience with other sports, they're always a good sports school. You look at what they did last year; they finished sixth in the Greater Allegheny Conference, 5-5 overall record. So it's just a matter of the tiebreakers didn't work out in their way. They did not make the playoffs. 2-4 conference record. That's what did it in for them. And 3 teams from the Allegheny Conference made it in with a 3-3 conference record. Kiski Area Highlands were the 2 teams that made the playoffs. So it's just that conference was, I think, not just the conference, but I think 4A in general last year was very deep. If one of those games goes Armstrong's way, we're talking about them in the playoffs, potentially jumping over Kiski. So yeah, just a lot of unknowns with Armstrong, I think. And I think Greater Latrobe, they're going to have to get familiar with them as long.
Well, Richard, I was fiddling around with something, so I kind of missed it. Did you happen to mention the fact that Greater Latrobe hasn't played them since 2017?
I did not. It was a 1-point loss in overtime. The last
Double
time Greater
overtime.
Latrobe, yeah, double overtime loss. The last time the two met. So again, it's just unfamiliarity with Armstrong in recent years. Now that's not unfamiliar with the school in general. Schools have played together in different sports, but from a football aspect, I just don't know if they're going to know once the week progresses and as the offseason progresses. I think they're going to get an idea of what they're going to do. But as we sit here March 14th, just don't know.
And I will say this, when Richard and I were up with the rest of the crew broadcasting the girls basketball game at Armstrong, Richard, something that you mentioned is that you don't mind the facilities over at Armstrong.
No, they are not only the facilities, they're very accommodating people. We enjoy going to a lot of these places and they're accommodating. So we would like to thank the Armstrong people. Yes, their facilities are very nice, but just the people also, they make it nice as well.
That's something that I'll state across the WPIAL.
Yes.
I can't think of a single place that we've gone where I've been like, oh, I'm not going back there ever again.
Oh, yeah, I agree. That's the case.
And we're very blessed for that. I know that there are some other broadcast teams from other states that have told me, they're like, how do you interact with these people day in and day out? It's so tough. I'm like, well, because I work in the WPIAL. So
Yeah. Well, also here's one thing to keep in mind about Armstrong. Ian Olsen is coming back, their top receiver. He was number 1 in receiving yards in 4A, 991 yards. That is something that is definitely going to be helpful. And they also have their quarterback coming back, Jaden Oliver. He was 7th in passing yards in 4A. So that duo is going to catch the eyes of teams, I think, as the season kind of nears the beginning.
now, obviously, being in the Wildcats section, the Wildcats are going to have to play Armstrong at some point. So I'm really interested to see what Ron Brady is going to do to kind of shut down that offense that the Riverhawks have.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And again, a lot of this goes back to you got to dominate, or not necessarily dominate, but you have to control the 2 lines. And that's something that Coach Brady has talked about countless times to me, and countless times in general. Got to win the possession battle, got to win possession battles, and got to win up front on both lines. And it's a big reason why the Wildcats have had success over the past 2 years.
And the last thing to say about the Riverhawks, at least for me, Richard, when you talk about that pushing the line and holding possession, it's going to help that Alex Patton, the running back for the Riverhawks, and Evan Stahl on the offensive line are both returning for them.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And also Carter Lash is going to be returning as well. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Now, when we talk about Ron Brady, and I would argue one of the game that I'm looking forward to the most, Richard, is PT. Penn Trafford.
Yeah.
You think Ron Brady has that circled on his calendar?
He does. Originally, I thought that we were going to go to PT because
I'd love to go to Warriors country.
Yeah, that's what I originally thought when looking at it, because the last time Greater Latrobe and Penn Trafford met, it was at Memorial Stadium, and Ron Brady was on the Penn Trafford sideline. And obviously, we know what happened there. What happened that season in 2021 with Coach Brady and his legacy there. But they still got John Ruane. They still got a great program at Penn Trafford. They were they finished second in the Big East Conference, 5-5 overall record. That may not be very flashy, but they did play a lot of tough non-conference games. But the key was they finished with a 4-1 section record, and they beat Franklin Regional final game of the season to earn that second guaranteed spot in the section. Now, Franklin Regional made the playoffs as the wild card, so at the end of the day, it didn't necessarily matter who won that game, but they still won it. Again, number 7 seed in the 5A playoff bracket. They did lose to number 2 Penn Hills, but I don't think there's any shame in losing to Penn Hills. That's a really good team that Penn Trafford played in the first round. And the last meeting between Greater Latrobe, as mentioned, 2021, it was 42-0 in favor of Penn Trafford. So definitely Greater Latrobe is going to try and rebound from that score, because there's some again, those guys that played in that 2021 game, they're seniors this year. So they're going to want to exact some revenge for the last time they met at Memorial Stadium.
Now, Richard, when we talk about the players that are returning that are going to remember that last game at Memorial Stadium, you have Tasso Whipple, the number 2 in rushing in 5A, 200 carries for 1,388 rushing yards. And then, help me out here, Richard, quarterback Johnny
Louver.
Now, for folks who are like, okay, Tristan, how come you don't know this guy's name? Well, remember, Richard went to school when these kids were in school, right, Richard? I mean, you're a little old now, but
don't butter me up. Don't try and butter me up here, Tristan. A lot of these guys are returning, and I think Penn Trafford has to be happy with the players that they're going to have coming back. Obviously, they lose Carmen Metcalf, they lose Zach Tomasovich, Dom Smith, and Mark Jolie. Those are losses that are big, especially Tomasovich and Metcalf. Those are 2 cornerstones on defense and offense. But Johnny Louver is coming back. You mentioned Tasso Whipple. Ben Grabowski's coming back. He was number 10 in rushing yards. PT ran the ball at a high level last year. They had the number 2 in rushing yards and number 10 in rushing yards. Like, that's really good. Jack Weishart's coming back. Nick Ponko's coming back. And Tyler Boss is coming back. Those are all skill positions that PT is going to expect big things from this year.
Now, Grabowski, he plays baseball, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know?
I can't say that for certain, but I think it does sound familiar when baseball comes.
We'll have to get Chris Beddick on the horn.
Yeah. Well, also keep in mind, PT is 5A Central, so we don't see PT for baseball that much. So keep that in mind. It's just unfamiliar. I would have to go double check.
Sorry, folks.
for certain.
We don't mean to go off on a tangent. I just see that. And I always, it's interesting to me as somebody who covers all these different sports, how many players kind of move across. You have multi-sport athletes in multiple schools in the WPIAL. It's just always interesting to see where that overlap is.
Yeah, and one thing that I remember Coach Brady saying is that a lot of these athletes at Greater Latrobe, kind of focusing on Latrobe here, a lot of them play multiple sports. And Coach Wetzel has mentioned that the benefit of playing on basketball is chemistry. And that's kind of a unique thing, is that chemistry is always important. That's probably the most important thing you need, apart from your players being healthy. So chemistry, yeah, and again, playing multiple sports, that definitely helps. Carrying over different sports, that chemistry connects.
Now, when we talk about chemistry, Richard, how about some negative chemistry? On the Route 22 rivalry, our next team on the list is Franklin Regional.
Yeah, this is a team that Greater Latrobe is very familiar with, most notably the boys basketball team this year. But if we're focusing on football this year, we're focusing football on this segment here, this show. The last meeting is one that left Greater Latrobe in heartbreak. The goal line stand by Franklin Regional, 28-21, with less than 30 seconds left. They are led by head coach Lance Getze. It seems like over the course of his tenure at Franklin Regional, he just is consistent. He gets wins. They won the Big East Conference the year before last year, so they're proven teams. He's a proven coach. They finished third in the Big East Conference last year. They finished behind Penn Trafford, and they did get the number 8 seed in the playoffs. 6-4 overall record, but the conference record was 3-2. They ended up losing the first round, just like PT, 35-0 to Peters Township. And as mentioned, the last meeting between Greater Latrobe and Franklin Regional was the last one, 28-21 at Memorial Stadium. But we're going to Franklin Regional this year, and the last meeting at Franklin Regional was 28-21 in double overtime for Greater Latrobe.
The big punch in by Robert Fulton.
Yes, I actually did get the score wrong there. I don't know it exactly, but I am going to correct myself there. The score is wrong. All I know is that we won in double overtime.
We did. Honestly, at Franklin Regional, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I don't think coaches, I don't think they care if they win by 1 or win by 40. They just care if they win. Obviously, winning by the margin definitely makes it easier. But at the end of the day, you just want to be winners.
As another commentator that I work with a lot, Mr. Rick DeRubis. Rick, I hope you're watching, and he always says you only need to win by 1. 40 is nice. It's flashy. It helps the stats, but 1 is all you need.
Yep. Let's look at some of the players that Franklin Regional is A, losing, B, returning. The key returners, I think, for me, Kyle Dupil, he was number 3 in rushing in 5A last year behind Tasso Whipple. He had 179 carries for 1,175 yards. That's good, and he's going to be a key to their offense this year, especially with losing Aiden Hudock, who was number 4 in receiving in 5A. He was number 4. They're going to have Chase Lemke back, their quarterback, and he also plays defensive back. So they're kind of taking some of the responsibility that Hudock represented as their number 1 corner, number 1 wide receiver. So, and he finished with a 50% complete, 11th in 5A with passing yards and 50% completion, 1,200, almost 1,300 yards for Franklin Regional. But looking at their graduates, Aiden Hudock is going to be a key one. Gunnar Perez, Juliano Marion, and Owen Sinclair is the big one on defense. Owen Sinclair, I know Ron Brady mentioned to me that Sinclair is kind of their cornerstone on defense, and Hudock as well on offense and defense. But it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how Franklin Regional navigates the losses of both Sinclair and Hudock.
Now, Richard, looking at the rest of this list, one of the returners that I think we forgot to mention, Joey Bain. How good of a kicker do you have to be like mentioned on, I think Westmoreland Sports did a roundup for Franklin Regional, and they mentioned Bain on multiple occasions. He has to be an incredible kicker.
Yeah, it always helps when you have a kicker, and I think there are probably some soccer skills there. I know that I know Ben BG had some soccer skills, and he was a good kicker for Greater Latrobe over the past 2 years. So that definitely helps. I would assume there's some soccer skills. I can't guarantee that for certain, but yeah, he's going to be returning this year. That's definitely going to be a key part of the mindset and game planning for both Franklin Regional and Greater Latrobe. How do we get in scenarios where we can at least try and get 3 points? How does Greater Latrobe kind of limit the 3 points and ultimately keep Franklin Regional out of that field goal range? So that just provides them with a different dimension on how to game plan when it comes to this Route 22 rivalry.
Now, we talk about the Route 22 rivalry. Let's go to the other side of that. The reason why everybody's here in the first place, Greater Latrobe. Richard, the Wildcats, your alma mater, arguably one of your favorite coaches in the section right now.
Yep.
Shout out to Mr. Ron Prady.
Yes, I know he's watching. So shout out to you, Coach.
Did he shoot you a text?
Not that I see right now.
Richard,
he probably will. Got to keep the updates going. That's what we're about. Quick synopsis for Greater Latrobe season last year. They finished third in the Big Seven Conference, 8-4, or with an 8-4 record. Sorry, I'm losing track here on my notes.
Too busy watching Pitt basketball, Richard.
Big win today for Pitt. Third in the Big Seven Conference, 8-4 overall record, regular season and playoffs. They finished third behind Sport and Thomas Jefferson. They were the number 9 seed in the 4A playoff bracket. They defeated West Allegheny 39-7 in the first round. They eventually lost to Aliquippa 37-29 in the second round, in a game in which they came back big time over the Quips. And I know the loss is something that is going to be big focus, but everyone's going to talk about the fight that Greater Latrobe showed, because not many teams can go into Aliquippa and tell the tale, let alone when they get down by double score or multiple scores, they have a chance to ultimately tie or take the lead. And Greater Latrobe did that.
Oh, absolutely. It was a battle in the pit. I remember one of the stories that I was told, one of the coaches from Aliquippa came up to one of the players from Greater Latrobe and was like, usually when teams go down double digits to the Quips, they kind of give up. But Latrobe at no point gave up and had everybody at the edge of their seats for the majority of that game.
Yeah, and it came down to one play at the end of the day, the fourth down incompletion. Again, it's inconclusive to see because on the field, it definitely looked like a catch, but it's just a matter of where the referee was and what the referees determined. But again, that's a tough ending. But you look at the returners that they're bringing back this year, it's a pretty good list, in my opinion.
Oh, I love
it. This is a very deep team this year. And I know everyone wants to start with the quarterback, but we're going to start with Alex Tash because I think he deserves it. We're going to start with Alex Tash. Yeah, he deserves it. I got to make sure that I get these stats right on defense here, courtesy of Mike Premka. Alex Tash finished with 91 tackles last year in 12 games. That's pretty good. 30 solo tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 4 interceptions. He had 1 defensive touchdown. He had 3 forced fumbles and 4 interceptions. That's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. And earn him that scholarship to Penn State. Richard, as a Pitt fan, I'm sure you're not too pumped about that, but you're happy for Alex himself.
Yeah, obviously happy for Alex. And, I'm going to put my fandom aside and I'm going to root for Alex to be the best player that he can be, regardless of school. He's just a great person to be around. Mm-hmm. He's a great person. He's a great player, great athlete, but what goes under the radar is his just desire to win and his desire to be a team player. And when you have that, and Greater Latrobe has had that regardless of who it is, regardless if it's Alex, regardless if it's Jaton Williams from this past year, regardless if it's Corey Borio from the year before, they've had the want to win, the want to desire, and want to be a team. And that's ultimately what's pushed them over the edge over the past 2 years and what's gotten them back on the map in the WPIAL.
And then on top of that, we talk about other returners, John Wetzel as well, Brady Brahovic running back, Jack Drinovich is also coming back. So Richard, on those guys on top of all these offensive linemen that are returning, I think Ron Prady's going to have a pretty great team.
Yeah, and I bet he's happy that John Wetzel's returning as well, because John Wetzel not only does it on offense as their quarterback as a dual threat, which I think gets a lot of the attention, but the defense is what stands out to me when it comes to Wetzel, because he's a hybrid, kind of a linebacker, kind of a safety. He kind of mans that secondary.
He's a big safety. Sorry,
He
Richard, I didn't
is.
mean to cut you off.
He is.
He is a big
No,
safety.
he hits like a linebacker and he plays like a safety. That's a great combination, I think, to have. Wetzel controls the secondary part. Alex Tash kind of controls the front seven part. So when you have those two as high profile players controlling both your offense and your defense, set up for success there. And I want to touch on the offensive line here real quick because I think it's going to be a great unit this year, in my opinion. Caleb Lehman's coming back. Cody Crawl's coming back. They're going to have Marco Scarton and Sandro Castillo kind of step in there. Marco Scarton was out for a good majority of the year, so he comes back healthy. The question is who kind of takes over the role of Jaton Williams, and to be honest, I don't really know. But they're going to have running backs this year. I know Coach Brady mentioned that there's not going to be a 1,600-yard rusher this past year for Robert Fulton, but they're going to have Brady Perhova carry the ball. They're going to have Alex Tash carry the ball. John Wetzel carry the ball. Chris Cochran carry the ball. They're a running first team, and I think we are going to see a little bit this year that maybe pick up not necessarily all the slack, but maybe players like Andy Tash, Sawyer Butina, they're going to pick up some of the production left behind by Jaton Williams.
That's what I was going to say. Jaton Williams graduating along with Zach Shuey, Ben Guerra, Jared Bailey, Nick Stump, and Ben Stratton. So a lot of really great players. But I think that there are players that are still at Great Latrobe that are really ready to make some noise.
Yeah, and again, it all comes down to just the want to win, the culture. It obviously starts with the coaching staff, but then it goes to the players. The players feed off the coach's message, and at the end of the day, the players and coaches kind of combine to create that culture. And everyone was wondering how to replace Robert Fulton. Greater Latrobe won more games. They did won more games last year than they did the year they had Robert Fulton. So I think Ron Brady is going to have an idea of what to do when it comes to finding a way to maybe not replace the production, but have the production kind of replicated through maybe not just one, but multiple players.
They want to go and see Aliquippa in the championship again.
I don't deny that. I think they know that they're going to be one of the teams to watch in 5A period this year. They're going to be.
Speaking of another team to really be watching out for in 5A, Woodland Hills, Richard, another great team. The Wolverines are probably ready to make some noise this year in this section.
I think so, yes. It was kind of a down year the last year that Greater Latrobe faced off against Woodland Hills. I think they were the last team in the playoffs in 2021. Last year, they didn't make the playoffs. They finished behind. They finished with a 6-4 overall record, 3-2 in section play. They finished third in the 5A Northeast Conference, and again, third in 4A would have got you in the playoffs. Third in 5A puts you up to the wild card and kind of makes you wait till the last second. Woodland Hills ended up losing their final game, so Franklin Regional got in instead of Woodland Hills. But also Penn Hills and Pine Richland, they were in their section as well, which just makes it that much more tough. The last game between Greater Latrobe and Woodland Hills, it was in 2021, 26-17 loss for the Wildcats at Woodland Hills.
And that was a tough game, Richard, because the Wildcats needed to win that game to make it into the playoffs that year.
Right.
You were there for that game, weren't you?
I was not there for that game, but I definitely did pay attention. I definitely followed that game closely. Definitely a game that again, we go back to 2021. I mentioned it earlier when I talked about PT that they were freshmen at the time, but now these upcoming seniors, they remember that, they remember the PT shutout loss at home. They remember not making the playoffs against Woodland Hills that year. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they kind of, not only kind of use that as motivation, but also, can't believe I've waited this long to say it, but your senior season, you got to leave it all out there.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of senior season, leaving it all out there, key returners for the Wolverines, Scoop Smith. I know that's not his real name, but I mean, what a cool nickname, Scoop Smith.
Yep.
And then Zakir Moore, the athlete. Both of those guys making the 2023 5A All-Star team. So two great players returning for the Wolverines, Richard.
Yeah, he had 600. Zakir Moore had 609 rushing yards last year, 16th in 5A when it comes to that. And then Smith finished 8th in receiving yards in 5A He had 851 yards, 17 touchdowns. That's going to be kind of circle that guy when you talk about Woodland Hills. They are losing some key pieces on the offensive line. Dominic Wilson and Antonio Wilson, both of them are graduating. So I think apart from the offensive line, which is a question, potentially, skill positions should be coming back better than ever.
And then last but certainly not least here on this list, right before we go to another commercial break, Gateway, the Gators, Richard. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited for that game.
I am too. I think the biggest thing is that Brad Birch is not going to be their quarterback next year. Brad Birch was really good for the Gators over the course of his tenure there. He finished third in passing yards last year in 5A, 2,214 yards. That's really good. Their key returners, Alicidra Bryant, he finished 20th in passing yards. He was one of their quarterbacks as well. Kenny Lewis, a skill position player, third in 5A with 890 yards. And then Derek Shelby as well, a defensive back and a wide receiver, finished with almost 400 yards last year. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of replaces Brad Birch. I'm assuming it's going to be Bryant as we sit here in March, but it's also going to, and I think they're going to have those returners back on the skill position side. So they should be kind of like the same team that they were last year, competing for another section title. And again, they won the Big East Conference last year, 5-5 overall record, but a 5-0 section record. 4 seed in the playoffs. They had a disappointing exit to the playoffs with a 35-31 loss in the first round against Moon, a game-sealing interception by Moon as in the final seconds of that game. And the last game against Greater Latrobe, or against Gateway for Greater Latrobe, was a loss at Gateway, 3-7. So Greater Latrobe trying to right that ship.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm excied for Gateway. Like you said, we're about to get into who's playing where and how it's going to affect the games. But again, all these teams, Richard, I think we're very excited. Is there anyone that really jumps out to you? To me, it's PT.
I mean, it's hard not to say the Route 22 rivalry, just because it's always fun. I'm excited to see PT again. I am, just because PT's always a quality team, and I think Latrobe wants to test themselves, because I think we can say that they should be a playoff team next year. They should. And that's a game that's going to have circled on. We're going to get to the schedule in a minute here, but that's a game you're going to have circled. Gateway's another game you're going to have circled. And then kind of an off the board one, Armstrong. It's just it's unfamiliar. So that's why I kind of circled that one, just to see how that game goes from Greater Latrobe standpoint.
So, folks, that'll do it for us at this time. We're going to take a quick commercial break and thank all of our sponsors here on the Wildcats Network. When we come back, we're going to continue with the schedule stream, talking about the actual schedule that dropped this afternoon from the WPIAL here on the schedule stream, brought to you by Eat in Park.
I'm proud to work with an organization that's known across the state, that's reputable. Adelphi is a place to have ample opportunities for promotion. There's nothing that Adelphi won't do for you personally and professionally. Come on in.
Welcome back here, folks, on the Wildcats Network, our live stream covering the WPIAL section and the schedule here in our LHTC Media Studios here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Myself, Tristan Boylan, alongside the one and only Richard Hillwig on the horn. Richard, how about that schedule? You ready to break that down?
I am, Tristan, and it's different from week 0 from previous years because it's no longer Derry. It is Connellsville to open the season for Greater Latrobe, a team that Greater Latrobe has played the past 3 years, winning all 3 matchups against Connellsville. It is a little surprising that Derry is not the first game, but I think Connellsville still makes for a good matchup to open the season. Both those communities relatively close. And I think also with first couple weeks of the season before section play, it's kind of just about the rivalries. It's about the rivalries that stand out.
I agree. And I met with Mike Premka earlier today about some stuff I wouldn't worry about too much. But I will say, when I asked Mike, I'm like, why not? The backyard brawl? You're kidding me. And he's like, well, both teams decided it's just the way they want to go right now. They might look at it next year and feel differently about it, but just right now, both teams are in different areas. And so they really want to kind of feel out their own sections and where they're at moving forward.
And I'm pretty sure it's at Connellsville next year. So
It's at Collinsville this year.
Yeah, this year. So
I thought,
sorry, I'm
sorry, folks.
What was
Richard's a
our-
lot
was
smarter
that-
than me. He has the brain cell.
yeah, I'm trying to, because I did write it down a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure.
All right, so Connellsville in week 0. Oh, sorry, Richard.
I was just gonna say, going right there, week 1 is Plum at Memorial Stadium and open the season. Again, a team that Greater Latrobe is, football at least, is unfamiliar with, but I know some other sports have kind of played them in some key games. Most notably, I think the Lady Wildcats basketball team, they played them this year. So interesting to see how again, these first 3 games are kind of tune-up and overall prepares for the gauntlet of the season for Greater Latrobe, because I think the gauntlet of their season is the section that they're in, because it is really competitive and really good.
And I would say when it comes to Plum, for me, it stands out the soccer team. I mean, Plum boys and girls soccer have been the creme de la creme, to say the least, in terms of WPIAL soccer. So it's Plum for me, it's soccer. But you're right, Richard. And when you talk about these first 3 games being tune-up games, I think next week's game, week 2, that's going to be the real deciding factor for this coming season for the Wildcats.
Yeah, week 3 at Norwin. Last time Greater Latrobe and Norwin played, it was at Norwin. Greater Latrobe lost that game. But I think Norwin kind of had a down year last year. Benny, I'm pretty sure is committed I'm pretty sure he committed to Lehigh. Don't quote me on that, but he's a key graduate for them. We talk about Norwin, again, down year last year, but that's another team that kind of like Latrobe, but doesn't have kind of the stature as Franklin, kind of doesn't have the same stature as the Route 22 rivalry. It's still a rivalry that's right in that area. It's kind of similar to Latrobe and Hempfield, which was the week 2 game last year. So for Norwin, Greater Latrobe is kind of familiar with them, but maybe not as much as they were for, say, a rival like Hempfield.
No, absolutely. And Richard, you and I were both at the girls basketball game where we went to Norwin. How excited are you to go to that stadium, Richard?
Norwin is it's a very nice school. They really care about their athletics there, just like here at Greater Latrobe. And yeah, I'm excited to go back there. Again, like we touched on before, all these schools are nice to go to, especially the ones that we're going to go to this year.
And then we talk about the Route 22 rivalry coming up in week 3, Richard.
Yep. That's going to kick off the conference play for Greater Latrobe. It's at Franklin Regional, kind of flipping back and forth over the course of the years with at Franklin Regional at Memorial Stadium. Back to Franklin Regional we go. It's going to be interesting over the course. Again, we're about 5 months away from it actually like preparing for this, but first impression, they start off conference schedule against a good team, which we're going to get to the later part of the schedule in a bit, but it kind of spreads out kind of the quality teams that Greater Latrobe is going to be facing.
No, I agree. And going to Franklin Regional, I think is big for everyone, especially the fact of home field advantage that people always talk about. I mean, that student section at Franklin Regional is no joke.
Yeah, it's a tone setter to go into there. I go back to last year's Franklin Regional opened the season against Thomas Jefferson, and they got beat pretty good in that game. So that was kind of a tone setter for Thomas Jefferson's season. I know their season didn't end the way they wanted to, but the regular season started off really good. And for Greater Latrobe, they had a tone-setting win there the last time they were there with that double overtime win. So it's about setting the tone for your season and setting the tone for your team. And to go into a place like Franklin Regional, that's 100% the key.
Oh, yeah, especially getting a win on the road in the Route 22 rivalry. But then after that, Richard, they're going to come home for a nice home stretch.
They are 3 home games in a row. We touched on it. Armstrong, Woodland Hills. Armstrong is an unknown, but Armstrong, Woodland Hills, Kiski, 3 home games in a row, weeks 4, 5, and 6. That is good. I think that's going to be nice knowing that there's no travel during that period. Greater Latrobe is going to like that, especially knowing that just overall, these are teams that you're unfamiliar with. Prepare for them and play to your conditions. That's also key.
And wouldn't it be nice to have the den in your back?
Oh yeah, it's always nice to have the den on your back. I know as someone that's been on the sidelines, sometimes I get caught off guard by the den. Uh, so players definitely, I can tell you right now, I guarantee players only focus on, their teammates and their coaches, but uh, who knows what it comes down to at the end of the day for the other team when you have the den, especially we see the den at Friday nights. Most of the time it's packed.
Oh yeah, even for basketball.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it will be great to have them there. From that stretch, which are the only team, and I'm tossing this to you because you were there, excuse me, whenever Kiski was in the same section with Greater Latrobe back, what was that, 3 years ago? Kiski, from my experience with their other sports, is scrappy. So I imagine they're going to come into Memorial Stadium and they're going to be a team where you better knock them out fast, because if you leave them in that game, it's going to get scary.
It's Kiski Latrobe. I know Mike Yandrick has always said that the rivalry between the two schools, not just basketball, but two schools in general, it goes without saying that it's scrappy. It means a lot. It means that, it's about pride. It's about pride. And this year it's about section standings. It's about potentially getting a playoff spot. So it just means that much more. And it's right in the thick of this section schedule. So it's just going to mean that much more. The students, the student body definitely get up, and they definitely get up. And whenever players say it's Kiski Day, they know what that means.
And then when you look past the home stretch, you look at, we're going to be at Freeport and then at Gateway. Now, Richard, you've never been to Freeport, right?
I have not been to Freeport. That's also a non-section game as well. So they kind of get a break for section play that week.
So I've been to Freeport before. Before I worked at LHGC Media, I worked for a different broadcasting company, and we covered Freeport, and a bit of a smaller school, but the facilities are just as nice. But I will say this is that Freeport is kind of secretly good. I'm not saying that they're bad. It's not like anybody looks at them, but like as a smaller school, people don't take them as seriously as they honestly really should.
Yeah, under the radar team. That's probably the best way I would say that. And I think Greater Latrobe is going to need that game because right after that game, they go to Gator. They go to Gator Country.
They go to the swamp.
Yes, Antamarino Field at Gateway. We've been there before. It's an intimidating. I don't know if it's as intimidating as some of these other places, but Pitt is pretty intimidating, and we saw what Greater Latrobe did there last year and almost won that game. So they're used to these kind of environments. But to me, that game is the circular because I think the winner of that game probably gets a guaranteed spot. I don't know about. It's just interesting because Greater Latrobe, who is a good team for the past 2 years, gets moved up to 5A, where there were 3 good teams already. And then you add Kiski and Armstrong in there that are kind of those teams that we don't know what to expect. There could be probably 2 or 3 teams that are good that don't make the playoffs. And so that's a game that you have to circle. And if, whoever ends up on the losing side of that is going to be scrapping in the final week of the season.
I agree. And the last thing about the swamp is that it's not as far of a drive. And I know that sounds strange to bring up. But I remember whenever the Wildcats had to travel out to like Ringgold when they traveled down to Thomas Jefferson, that was a bit of a long haul, Richard.
Yeah, the shorter bus rides definitely do, I think, factor in because you're not as stiff coming off. Obviously, you warm up before the game. That's no doubt about that. But you're not as stiff so that you don't have to warm up as extensively as if you were. So that definitely does play a factor, I would say.
And then last thing before we head on to, I think, in my opinion, one of the biggest games of the year, Richard, Ron Prady and the Wildcats like to play on the road.
Yeah, they do. I'm pretty sure last year that they only had, obviously, they had the playoff loss at Aliquippa, but I think apart from that, they only had 1 road loss, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong.
Yeah, McKeesport. I'm trying to.
Oh yeah,
rack my
McKeesport.
brain.
McKeesport. Yeah, it was McKeesport. Apart from the playoff loss, they just had one loss on the road. Uh, they like playing on the road. They just they go on the road. They do their show, and they don't care. They don't care who they upset. Uh, they just go. They go take their show on the road. And that's kind of the formula that Brady and the Wildcats have adapted over the 2 years.
Well, after those 2 road games, Richard, again, in my opinion, the biggest game of the year, PT comes to Memorial Stadium and Ron Brady plays the Warriors to close out the season.
And depending on circumstances, I just touched on it with Gateway. That's potentially for a playoff spot, if not for a section title. So that just makes that game that much more of a calendar circler, like in my opinion. And you're gonna get Greater Latrobe community. You're gonna get the Penn Trafford community. You're gonna get 2 good teams. You're gonna get 2 good head coaches. You're gonna get a fight. Those 2 schools are familiar with each other. There's no other way to deny it.
And I'll say this, we're also probably going to have every media group in Westmoreland County there, whether it's Westmoreland Sports. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if like KDKA tries to show up and do like a radio broadcast of the game. That's going to be the game of the year, in my opinion.
I think it's one of the games of 5A next year. I think it's going to be just because of where it's placed schedule. If you were to ask me, I think it decides seeding because I do think that probably both of those teams are playoff teams. But I just got done saying that a lot of these teams could be playoff teams. So we won't know until about halfway through the season which teams can really separate. But as it sits here right now, I really like that matchup to kind of end the season. From a fan aspect and from a student aspect, you're going to get the best environment at that game.
Oh, having the Den, PT coming into the Wildcats Den and having the Den and trying to battle both the Wildcats and the student section. That's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a fun, that night is going to be a fun night.
Oh, the lights on under the Friday night lights. Oh, Richard, you're giving me chills.
Well, that's kind of the point of this, isn't it?
So Richard, I'll say this before we head on over to our commercial break and then bring on our secret guest. And I know everybody's been waiting for that, and I appreciate everybody's patience. But we're going to have on our special guest after our break. But Richard, before that, are there any games on this list that surprise you? Like you're like, what? What is that doing there?
I'm not surprised.
The one for me is
by a lot.
Freeport.
I mean, I guess, but I'm not really surprised by any of the games. Like, Derry, I think is the one.
No dairy.
Yeah, no dairy is definitely the one, but obviously
Lactose intolerant here.
Those 2 schools decided to, not play this year, so I get that. That's a fair reasoning. But yeah, interesting to see Connellsville open up the season with Greater Latrobe. I'm excited for that one.
And we're going to be at Connellsville.
Yeah, so interesting game, and I think that's going to be a fun one.
And then after that, Richard, are there any games that you're not looking forward to that you're like, oh man, this is going to be a rough game for the Wildcats at least?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of these games are going to be very close. These games are going to be very fun. This is a very competitive section. And again, going to go back to it. A lot of these teams have a chance to make the playoffs. I think every team can probably finish with a 5-5 record. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. But as it sits here today, the second week of March, yeah, I think so.
My blood pressure could only take so much during the boys basketball season. If you guys remember how crazy that was, I think it's not going to get any better during football season.
It's going to be like that because anytime those 5A schools meet, they're going to take it down to the wire.
So Richard, last thing before we go to the commercial, are there any games? I know you keep saying that Penn Trafford is the one that you're excited for, Franklin Regional, but is there any other games that you think that people need to make sure is on their calendar?
Make sure that if you're not at Gateway, you watch the stream for that game. Make sure. Obviously, Route 22 rivalry, obviously, Ron Brady playing his former team in Penn Trafford. But to me, I think the game for either of those teams to potentially clinch a spot would be the Gateway game at Gateway. So that I think is going to be a fun game to watch.
I hope the Den's watching this. We need them to show up to Gateway.
Yes, we need them to show up to all the games, Tristan.
That'd be great. But if all the students are at the games, who's going to watch the stream?
Have the parents watch the stream. All the relatives watch the stream.
Yeah, I know that Ron Brady always talks about how his brother down in Georgia watches all of the streams.
Yeah, and that's why we do it. We watch it for convenience.
You're absolutely right, Richard. All right, folks, I think that's going to do it for this segment where we break down the schedule. We're going to take a quick break here on the Wildcats Network. When we come back, we're going to have our secret guest with us here on the schedule live stream brought to you by Eaton Park.
Hi, I'm Jason Brinker. This is my wife Hannah and our daughter Charlotte, and welcome to Lepatich Brinker Funeral Home in Latrobe. Since 1958, our family-owned funeral home has been serving the needs of our friends and families in the greater Latrobe and surrounding communities. Allow us to walk with you on one of life's most difficult journeys through pre-planning to ensure that your wishes are understood, dignified at-need service to see that your wishes are fulfilled, and comprehensive aftercare assistance to aid your family through a life-changing transition. Along with traditional burial and cremation services, our funeral home is one of few in Westmoreland County who are proud to say we are certified as green burial providers. Please feel free to contact us at 724-537-2001 or visit our website at www.lepatich.com for more information. Allow us to prove to you that we are where dignity prevails.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wildcat Den. LHTC Media Crew bringing you tonight's game.
Short notice, preparing for a good team like this isn't easy, but this is our style of basketball.
Greater Latrobe starts out the evening with a pin from Palmer Airport in Latrobe, live streamed by LHTC Media.
You've been watching the Wildcat Network on LHTC Media.
Hey, conductor, how about something new? You played this last year.
Come on, get your head out of your sacks.
Shh, we're trying to hear.
Well, I'm sick and tired of hearing your kid play the wrong notes. Where's my kid solo?
At least you can see your kid. Why is my kid stuck way in the back?
The conductor only plays his favorite.
My kid heard that solo!
You saying I did?
Yeah! How will your college experience transform you? How will you learn to make a difference in your life and the lives of others? At St. Vincent College, we attract high-achieving students who quite naturally place we ahead of me. A small college like St. Vincent gives you more access to the opportunities that will shape your future.
At St. Vincent College, we succeed.
We succeed together.
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 Because at St. Vincent College, we succeed together.
I think we can agree it's been a crazy year for everyone. And we here at Latrobe Auto Group want you to know that we're in this together and we're here for you. Hi everyone, I'm Wendy Hyrak and I'm the finance manager here at the dealership. During the past year, we've all seen some pretty crazy things. Maybe your credit's been affected by some of those things. You should know that no matter what your credit situation is, great credit, good credit, bad credit, or no credit, Latrobe Auto Group wants to be your dealer and we specialize in credit challenges. Our credit team is just waiting to put you in a new car or truck that will start building your credit today and get you moving in the right direction. No matter what you've heard, our lot is stocked with new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned cars and trucks. Vehicles that not only fall in line with the bank's parameters, but your budget. So whatever's been holding you back, put it aside, come on in, and together we can make it happen.
Hi, I'm Chris Beddick, agent for State Farm Insurance, located conveniently on Route 981 here in Latrobe. We proudly offer auto, home, renters, life, and small business insurance since 2001. Need a good neighbor? Chris Beddick is there. Go Wildcats!
I'm proud to work with an organization that's known across the state, that's reputable. Adelphi is a place to have ample opportunities for promotion. There's nothing that Adelphi won't do for you personally and professionally. Come on in.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood to stop at Hotel Loyal Pizza in the heart of downtown Latrobe on Ligonier Street. Since opening our doors in 1953, Hotel Loyal Pizza has proudly served the Latrobe area. From pizza, sandwiches, sides, salads, and so much more. Whether you're taking out or dining in, our menu has something for everyone. As if the company here wasn't enough, to stop in, try one bite of our highly acclaimed pizza, and you're sure to be hooked. Visit our website at hotelloyalpizza.com or call us at 724-537-3741. And remember to support our 2023 Gridiron Wildcats. Go Cats!
Hi, I'm Jason Brinker. This is my wife Hannah and our daughter Charlotte, and welcome to Lepatich Brinker Funeral Home in Latrobe. Since 1958, our family-owned funeral home has been serving the needs of our friends and families in the greater Latrobe and surrounding communities. Allow us to walk with you on one of life's most difficult journeys through pre-planning to ensure that your wishes are understood, dignified at-need service to see that your wishes are fulfilled, and comprehensive aftercare assistance to aid your family through a life-changing transition. Along with traditional burial and cremation services, our funeral home is one of few in Westmoreland County who are proud to say we are certified as green burial providers. Please feel free to contact us at 724-537-2001 or visit our website at www.lepatich.com for more information. Allow us to prove to you that we are where dignity prevails.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wildcat Den. LHTC Media Crew bringing you tonight's game.
Short notice, preparing for a good team like this isn't easy, but this is our style of basketball.
Greater Latrobe starts out the evening with a pin from Palmer Airport in Latrobe, live streamed by LHTC Media.
You've been watching the Wildcat Network on LHTC Media.
Hey, conductor, how about something new? You played this last year.
Come on, get your head out of your sacks.
Shh, we're trying to hear.
Well, I'm sick of tired of hearing your kid play the wrong notes. Where's my kid solo?
At least you can see your kid. Why is my kid stuck way in the back?
The conductor only plays his favorite.
I get her! Not solo!
You saying I did?
Yeah!
How will your college experience transform you? How will you learn to make a difference in your life and the lives of others? At St. Vincent College, we attract high-achieving students who quite naturally place we ahead of me. A small college like St. Vincent gives you more access to the opportunities that will shape your future.
At St. Vincent College, we succeed.
We succeed together.
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 Because at St. Vincent College, we succeed together.
I think we can agree it's been a crazy year for everyone. And we here at Latrobe Auto Group want you to know that we're in this together and we're here for you. Hi everyone, I'm Wendy Hyrak and I'm the finance manager here at the dealership. During the past year, we've all seen some pretty crazy things. Maybe your credit's been affected by some of those things. You should know that no matter what your credit situation is, great credit, good credit, bad credit, or no credit, Latrobe Auto Group wants to be your dealer and we specialize in credit challenges. Our credit team is just waiting to put you in a new car or truck that will start building your credit today and get you moving in the right direction. No matter what you've heard, our lot is stocked with new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned cars and trucks. Vehicles that not only fall in line with the bank's parameters, but your budget. So whatever's been holding you back, put it aside, come on in, and together we can make it happen.
Hi, I'm Chris Beddick, agent for State Farm Insurance, located conveniently on Route 981 here in Latrobe. We proudly offer auto, home, renters, life, and small business insurance since 2001. Need a good neighbor? Chris Beddick is there. Go Wildcats!
I'm proud to work with an organization that's known across the state, that's reputable. Adelphi is a place to have ample opportunities for promotion. There's nothing that Adelphi won't do for you personally and professionally. Come on in.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood to stop at Hotel Loyal Pizza in the heart of downtown Latrobe on Ligonier Street. Since opening our doors in 1953, Hotel Loyal Pizza has proudly served the Latrobe area. From pizza, sandwiches, sides, salads, and so much more. Whether you're taking out or dining in, our menu has something for everyone. As if the company here wasn't enough to stop in, try one bite of our highly acclaimed pizza and you're sure to be hooked. Visit our website at hotelloyalpizza.com or call us at 724-537-3741. And remember to support our 2023 Gridiron Wildcats. Go Cats!
Welcome back to our LHTC Media Studios here in downtown Latrobe, as this schedule breakdown is brought to you by Eaton Park, the place for smiles. I think you knew who our special guest was when we mentioned at the top. It's head coach Ron Brady of the Greater Latrobe Wildcats. Coach, thanks for taking some time and talking with us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep. No, you're good.
No, that's all right. So far it's good. You know, we got, well, first we started back in January, about mid-January. And, you know, those guys that played basketball and wrestled and the other sport, bowling, we wanted those guys to finish those seasons strong. Since then, those guys have been back out. They're with us. But again, we got guys that run track and play baseball and lacrosse, which is great. We encourage those guys to do that. But everybody that's not there participating in another sport is with us. And, you know, we got a pretty good group of kids, so we're excited.
And you mentioned a great group of kids. The story for kind of the offseason was Alex Tash committing to Penn State. I know I talked with him right after he committed. Big weight for him to get off his shoulders, but you've been a part of the big game recruiting process before. I know you did it with Cade Yakimelli at Penn Trafford. So for you as the coach, what was that kind of process like for you? And now to just kind of get that out of the way and have you and Alex and kind of your staff just focus on the season now.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I didn't do much with Cade. You know, typically John Ruane handled that stuff, and he did a great job. But I did see some of the stuff that went on, and Alex's case was different. It happened early. You know, it happened throughout it happened before his junior season. Got a couple offers, and then throughout the season they started to grow and continued to grow after the season. You know, to where he took off and he's ranked nationally and you know, became a guy that tons of schools were interested and wanted, and it was exciting for Alex. It's exciting for our program. But I think he's happy to have that weight off his shoulders and happy to be done with the process. It's kind of like a, you know, as Alex would say, I think he's flattered in the beginning, but then it became a lot. It was constant every night on the phone every day through January. There were 3, 4 or more schools in to see him. And
Coach Franklin flying out in his helicopter.
Coach Franklin again in his helicopter. You know, Lincoln Riley coming out from USC to spend a couple hours with us. That was, you know, pretty special. And it was cool, but I think he's excited to be done, and I think he feels like he made the best choice for him, and I think he's going to have a great career.
Well, Coach, right now in the stream, we're talking about not only the schedule, but kind of the realignment in the new section for the Wildcats. Now, I take it you already got a chance to see the new realignment for 5A. Was there anything in there that surprised you?
No, I don't think so. I think it was kind of, will Woodland Hills or Plum be with us? I think that was the big question. I think everybody thought it would be us, PT, Gateway, and Franklin Regional, and probably Kiski and Armstrong. And then we knew one would probably, it wouldn't be both, and it wouldn't be neither of, like I said, Plum or Woodland Hills. We thought we would get one or the other, and they decided Woodland Hills. So as far as, you compare it to last year travel-wise, it's great. We got a lot shorter trips and teams that I think we're more familiar with, that we've been playing for many years. So we're excited about it. And at the same time, we understand the challenge that's ahead of us. A lot of good football teams.
You're not surprised that Aliquippa got moved up to 5A?
No.
Fan the Flames over here.
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, the rules are, whatever the rules are, and apparently they fell into that category to be moved up, so they got moved up.
Well, you mentioned a good team that you guys are going to be facing, Penn Trafford. You're very familiar with them. I originally thought that we were going to go to Warrior Country. Instead, Warrior Country comes to Greater Latrobe. Is that going to mean a little bit more for you, knowing that you're from the area and that when you look at it, it's probably going to be a big game as far as the way the season lined out?
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope we're still in a position that week 10, it means something. And I'm sure Coach Ruane and his staff are thinking the same thing. But I don't think it's any more important or less important than any game on our schedule. I've said it 100 times. I respect those guys and the job that they do over there. And I'm absolutely positive they're going to have their guys prepared and ready to play us, just like they do every week. It's not just us. They're going to prepare every week, and we're going to do the same. And, we knew we were going to play them. It's just a matter of where and when. And I'm sure John is excited about it, and we're excited about it. So we'll see what happens. But we got a lot of games before we worry about PT.
Now, we talk about PT. A lot of people, me personally, I was very excited to hear about PT and how they're going to come to Greater Latrobe. But, Coach, for you personally, are there any other teams on there that you have circled, maybe Franklin Regional, considering the game that you guys had last year at Memorial Stadium?
No, I don't think one game is more important than the other. Hopefully we have all 10 circled. Our guys do. And, to be honest, I know it sounds like coach speak, but it's true. If we go to Penn Trafford and we're 2-7, then it really doesn't mean a whole lot. So we've got to take care of the games leading up to that. And like I said, there's a lot of good football teams, a lot of good coaches that I know will have their guys prepared. And hopefully we're going to do the same and see how things fall.
And when you look at the schedule, you get the 3 non-conference games to open up, and then 4th non-conference game is kind of right in the middle of section play. So just what are your thoughts on the non-section or non-conference kind of schedule? Are those going to be kind of games that you're going to use as tune-up? Obviously, you want to win. I get that. But the meat of the schedule at the end of the day comes down to conference play.
Sure. But, I think I've said this before, too. Our guys are guaranteed 10 games. And, we say we got to go earn that 11th game. And the section games are the ones that matter. But our guys are going to play if they're healthy, whether it's a conference game or a section game or a non-section. And, we're going to try to play and win every game. We start off with Connellsville week 0 down there. So, we know how well they played against us last year. They were tough. And Plum, we then have Plum at home, and, they were always tough. So those are 2 tough ones. And Norwin had a kind of a, I don't know what their record was, but kind of a bounce back year a little bit for them. They're going to be good too. So those games leading into what we want to do is use those games as building blocks to get better and prepare and be playing our best when section play hits.
And I think you want to get back to where you were last year and go above where you ended the season last year after you fell to Aliquippa. So obviously Aliquippa is probably going to be at the top of where you're trying to get to next year. Should we expect a rematch or at least a kind of a new game with the Quips almost try and get back to that same point?
I have no idea, Rich. I wish I could guarantee you that, but they're going to play 10 games and we're going to play 10 games, and they're going to play some tough teams, and we are too. And then we're going to see where we are after 10 games, and if we happen to be meet up with them in the playoffs, then we do. But that's not something that we really worry about now. I'm sure they're not worried about us, and we're not worried about them. If it happens, it happens, and we'll be excited to play.
Lastly, Coach, what are you guys going to do over the summer in preparation for the summer whenever we get ready for the Wildcats roundups?
Well, right now we're going to continue to work out. We're moving up a class, so I think it's important that we get bigger and stronger. Those teams are that. I don't know that there's a huge difference in the speed of the game. Aliquippa and those guys played fast, and McKeesport played fast, and we played some good teams there that were athletic, and the speed of the game isn't a whole lot different from 4 to 5, but the physicality is. So we're going to have to get bigger and stronger, and certainly, we've been working on that since January. We're going to continue that through the summer, and adding in our football work, getting ready. So summer hits, we'll do a couple 7-on-7s, and before we know it, August will be here, and then things are for real. So we recognize how fast it goes, and our kids that have been through it, stress that too to the younger kids, that this off season will fly by. It'll feel like it's taken forever, but before we know it, August is here, and then we're ready to go.
Now, Coach, I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick. Throughout the basketball season, we were very thankful to have you show up to some of the basketball games. As spring is right around the corner, we're going to be going to softball and baseball. Should we expect to see some Ron Prating sightings at some of these games?
You should.
Perfect.
You definitely should. Now, I'm a big fan of softball.
Really?
And baseball. Oh, yeah. And my daughter played a lot of softball throughout the years. And, I did some coaching of her teams, and I love softball. I love watching it. I love baseball too, but softball to me is, kind of my favorite, other than football. So I think you'll see me at some of those games for sure.
Do you live for high intensity action that softball brings?
Well, Rich, I think it's faster.
Yeah.
Than baseball. The good thing is you go in between innings, and there's not 9 pitches thrown by the pitcher, warm-up pitches. First baseman's not rolling a ball around the infield for 5 minutes. Softball, the inning's over, defense takes the field, pitcher throws one, you throw it down, and let's go. And I like that part of it. It seems to be a faster pace. But I love baseball too, and I support those guys and support all of our athletes. I think it's important that we as coaches do that, and teachers, and encourage them to maximize their potential in athletics and academics, and take advantage of all the great opportunities that Latrobe affords them. So, I certainly want to be a part of supporting that.
Well, you've had good weather over the course of the past couple of weeks. So after that, you just after that, go watch the softball or baseball games after your afternoon practice.
The softball and baseball coaches will tell you we're for sure going to get a snowstorm here in March and April.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you talk to Coach Bass, he'll tell you they're hoping it's not the case, but seems like when you get this good weather early in the season, then Mother Nature throws a snowstorm at you.
Yeah, you get you get 30-degree days like twice in a row in April. Yeah. So,
and you're trying to play baseball and softball in that, and it's miserable. But to those guys' credit, they'll play in 35, 40-degree weather, and just to get games in Western Pennsylvania, sometimes it's kind of what you got to deal with. So they've been through it before. They know how to handle it, and thankfully, I'm not in their position.
Well, unfortunately for us, especially for Richard, we have to go and broadcast those games, Coach.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a little cold out there.
Maybe they'll get you a heater. Tell Coach Kowalski to get you a little space heater there. Maybe get you under a tent and keep you warm.
I mean, I'll have to talk to Gus. Let's see if he can do anything about it.
Maybe Gus can help you too.
We hope so.
That's right.
Well, Coach, as always, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
No problem, and we'll talk soon. I appreciate everything you guys do.
Yes, sir. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Richard and I are going to break down what Coach Brady had to say, and we're going to wrap up this live stream that's being brought to you by Eaton Park.
I think we can agree it's been a crazy year for everyone. And we here at Latrobe Auto Group want you to know that we're in this together and we're here for you. Hi everyone, I'm Wendy Hyrak and I'm the finance manager here at the dealership. During the past year, we've all seen some pretty crazy things. Maybe your credit's been affected by some of those things. You should know that no matter what your credit situation is, great credit, good credit, bad credit, or no credit, Latrobe Auto Group wants to be your dealer and we specialize in credit challenges. Our credit team is just waiting to put you in a new car or truck that will start building your credit today and get you moving in the right direction. No matter what you've heard, our lot is stocked with new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned cars and trucks. Vehicles that not only fall in line with the bank's parameters, but your budget. So whatever's been holding you back, put it aside, come on in, and together we can make it happen.
Hi, I'm Chris Beddick, agent for State Farm Insurance, located conveniently on Route 981 here in Latrobe. We proudly offer auto, home, renters, life, and small business insurance since 2001. Need a good neighbor? Chris Beddick is there. Go Wildcats!
I'm proud to work with an organization that's known across the state, that's reputable. Adelphi is a place to have ample opportunities for promotion. There's nothing that Adelphi won't do for you personally and professionally. Come on in.
And we're back here on the Wildcats Network on our live stream for the football schedule that was just dropped by the WPIAL, brought to you by Eaton Park. We just got done talking with our special guest, and it's no secret now, it's Ron Prady. Now, Richard, something that I thought that Coach Ron Prady was going to bring up, and he didn't. I'm a little disappointed, but it's somebody's birthday today. Here on Pi Day.
Whose is that?
That would be you, King Richard. And a happy birthday to you, Richard. I imagine everybody's going to be leaving comments all over this live stream that a happy birthday to the King.
Thanks, Tristan. Much appreciated.
Well, speaking of things that we appreciate, Coach Ron Prady taking time out of his day to come and speak with us. I know he still has practices and stuff like that, but we always appreciate it because what people don't know is that Ron Prady's not contractually obligated to talk to us. None of these high school people are. Whenever I was doing sports media up at IUP, those coaches were required to talk to student media based on their contract. But Ron Prady is just a good man and just takes time out of his day to come and talk to us. So we always appreciate it.
And that's why we appreciate people, not just coaches, but people like Coach Brady, Coach Wetzel, Coach Livingston, Coach Bassiano, all coaches and all student athletes at Greater Latrobe. That's why we appreciate all of them.
Yeah, because they can say no. They can say, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah, but that also goes to us being candid, or at least we try to be candid.
We do. There are no smokes and mirrors here. We're as real as they possibly get.
Yep.
Especially you, Richard.
I try.
Especially when you get folks, you don't understand when we were doing the baseball roundup, which is going to be dropping tomorrow. Richard was being mobbed the entire time that we were there because all these teachers, all these other students, they all knew Richard. They wanted to talk to Richard.
I try my best to not be a fan favorite, but everyone, for some reason, everyone thinks of me as a fan favorite, which I do appreciate. But kind of like Alex, I trying to be humble about it.
Yeah, well, speaking of Alex, we're going to break down what Ron Brady had to say before we send everybody on their merry way. Coach Brady, I would argue, I thought we were going to be able to get him a little bit more excited about things.
Well, if there's one thing I know about Coach Brady is that he is always a game-by-game type of coach. That's just who he is. He always cares about winning that week. So whenever he says, play 10 games, get the chance to turn 11, that's kind of been the motto since day one that he's got to or become the head coach of Greater Latrobe. And I think at the end of the day, the players have bought in that since day one. They've bought in kind of philosophy day one. And that's really helped as well.
I agree. And I really personally think that he's downplaying that PT game.
Well, if it was at PT, I think we could have got him a little bit more out of him. But, he's going to, again, he said, they're 2-7. That game probably won't matter as much. But, going back to that game by game kind of philosophy, if Greater Latrobe game by game, probably going to put themselves in a position where that game is going to matter. And I think, after the game and before the game, after the game more so, he can focus on kind of the personal aspect and the community aspect. But before that and the week before, they're just going to focus on stopping, presumably, the running back duo of Grabowski and
Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's really going to help his team out. I wonder, and I think we should have asked him that question. I'm sure we'll ask him about in the roundup whenever we get up to that back up in June. I want to see what Coach Wetzel has to say about his defense because he lost a really good cornerback in Jaton Williams.
Yeah, but I think they have enough talent and they have their stars on defense to make up for it. Yes, they are losing their top two corners in Nick Stump and Jaton Williams. That is a question, but again, Wetzel, Tash, Braden Bronson, they're going to be there. Players from last year's team, they're going to be there. I think Cody Crawl could have a very good season next year. He showed a lot of flashes last year. Tim Myers also can provide great flashes as well. So there are a lot of players that are going to be asked to take elevated roles from last year's team, and not just looking at one particular game, but throughout that entire season as well.
And I think he also is downplaying. And again, as a sports media team, we're really trying to get people hyped and excited about things. And I know that Ron, like you just said, Richard, Ron Praise more of a game-to-game kind of guy. But man, you got to know that Aliquippa game is playing in the back of his head, and he wants the quips so bad.
Well, I don't know if he wants the quips again, because let's be real, Aliquippa is the king. And, sometimes whenever you duel with the king, you don't end up on the right side. But what I would say is that game will probably fuel them for this year, knowing how close they were. They not only were they close, I think we forget to realize that what could have happened if Greater Latrobe beats Aliquippa? We obviously don't know, but a game like that could really ride you going on, not just in WPIAL play, but PIAA play. So that's something that kind of is left wanting. And I think for Greater Latrobe's case, that's probably going to fuel them. I don't necessarily think that they want a rematch with the Quips, given how successful they've been and given how good they've been, but just knowing that could help fuel them, or potentially if they meet Aliquippa again.
And then last but not least, Richard, were you expecting Ron Brady to be a big softball man?
I did know that he coached softball. I did know that he coached softball. I didn't expect him to be a big softball guy, but
Ron Brady is a man of many talents.
Yes, and he's a big community guy as well, and that's something that I think goes under the radar about him, because yes, he's a great football coach. Yes, he's a great guy. He's a great football guy, but he's a great community guy as well. And that's something we appreciate with him. And that's something that the people of Latrobe know. But to maybe the outside eye, that's something that maybe the outside communities don't know about Ron Brady.
Well, PT definitely knows that.
Oh yeah,
he gets swarmed everywhere. Every time we go to PT and we see Ron Brady there, he gets swarmed.
Yeah, everywhere he's been, he's a known community guy. But what we've known, and again, he's been at Greater Latrobe for over 15 years at this point now. It's just his third year as Greater Latrobe head coach coming up. So he's now more well-known in the community than he was before as just a teacher.
Yeah. Well, Richard, any other final words before we send the viewers home?
Can it be football season already?
I know. And this is nothing against softball and baseball. Don't blow up my comments section. Don't message us on Facebook talking about how we don't appreciate them. We do love our spring sports, but I mean, after the season that Ron Brady had last year, I mean, you can't help but be excited and chomping at the bit for football.
Yeah, I definitely think that he is, and their team is the team that, if they get punched in the mouth, they just want to get right back up and go at it again, regardless of the rest. And I think that's a big reason why they're starting their preparation in January.
Oh, yeah. And I liked his comment about they need to get stronger. And this is, believe me, a lot of those guys on that football team are stronger than me, and I'm a grown man. But he's right. 5A is so much more different than 4A. This is a whole different animal that they're about to battle.
The depth of teams in 5A is a little bit different. Some schools in 4A, they had depth. Aliquippa, they didn't, but they were able to make do with what they had. I think, Greater Latrobe, they have a lot of quality depth in their incoming senior class. That's going to shine, I think, next year, because it's a senior heavy team next year. And I think that's kind of an underlying factor as well, is the senior factor is going to be a driving force this year, not just that in Tide, the Aliquippa force as well.
Well, folks, this is going to do this from the Wildcats Network, from our studios here in Latrobe at LHCC Media Studios. Myself, Tristan Boylan, alongside the one and only King Richard, the birthday boy, here on 314. Richard, thank you so much for joining me on the horn. I know that you'd much rather be at your birthday dinner than being here in the studio with me, but I really appreciate it.
Well, we got to talk to Coach Brady, so it makes up for it.
That's my birthday gift to you, Richard.
Thank you.
Yep. I couldn't do anything else, so I got Ron Brady.
That's okay.
But folks, thank you for viewing. For a lot of people who don't know this, you guys are the reason why we do this stuff, why we do these live streams, why we put so much effort, especially myself, putting so much effort into our media that we put out there for you guys, because that's what you deserve. And so I really hope that a lot of people watch this live stream either right now or at a later date, because it's going to be archived. We hope that you know that we did this for you guys, and I really hope that you enjoy it and get a lot out of it.
Yeah, right back at. I'll echo what you said. We do this for the community, and for Coach Brady to see that and recognize that and kind of take some time out of his evening. Definitely appreciate it.
And again, that's going to do us for here on the Wildcats Network. Thank you, Eaton Park, for sponsoring this live streams. We wouldn't be able to do it without our wonderful sponsors, and Eaton Park really stepped up to the plate for tonight's broadcast. So thank you again, Eaton Park. For Richard Hillwig, I'm Tristan Boylan here from the LHTC Media Studios in Latrobe. We'll see you in